Now, I don't usually do this, but I wanted to make a shorter video essay, a more casual one, I guess, where I just recommend a film. A film that I think is interesting, and that film today is Lost River, a 2014 film directed by Ryan Gosling. Yeah, this guy has directed a film. And in my opinion, it's pretty solid, it's pretty great actually. But more than that, I wanted to take today's video to just, briefly explore the differences and similarities found in actors turned directors. Because I think Gosling is a director who in many ways kind of transcends the rest of the actor turned directors. So Lost River, what is it about? Well, I don't really know. It's not very story or character driven. That's kind of its first deviation from what we usually get from actors turned directors. This film is super heavy on striking visuals and an unsettling atmosphere and tone. The reason I say this is a deviation is because an examination of most actors turned directors will show you that their films are usually very dialogue and story driven, quite actor focused. Clint Eastwood is a good example of this, Ben Affleck's earlier work also, Mel Gibson, James Franco, the list goes on. There are of course directors who lean more towards the visual aspect or at least find some form of balance. You've got people like Jonah Hill with mid-90s or Bradley Cooper of course with A Star Is Born. There are of course many more actors turned directors who I won't mention, but you can put your favorites in the comments down below. And of course there's the actor turned director himself, Mr. Orson Welles, who was just an absolute visual master while also being able to convey story and characters in such a beautifully complex way. But perhaps I'll talk about him in more detail in another video essay for another day. Now, a lot of actors turned directors can also be seen to take influence from directors that they have worked with in the past. For example, there's a bit of Leone in Eastwood's early westerns, there's a bit of David Lowery in Casey Affleck's directorial debut Light of My Life, and this kind of influence is quite present in Lost River, I think. Although Gosling emphasizes the fact that Lost River is very much its own thing, which I totally agree, I feel like you can say that there are some influences from the filmmakers that he has worked with. It would only make sense for there to be some. Gosling had of course worked with some of the most interesting filmmakers of the decade before he directed Lost River, so you can see some inspiration from Nicholas Winding Refn with the dark and harsh use of bold colors and neon lighting. Derek Cianfrance's almost poetic style of handheld is very much present here. And of course Terrence Malick. Gosling worked with Malick on a film called Song to Song, with chunks of it shot way back in 2011 and 2012. So what we get as a result is something that feels very original and unique. There is definitely a sense of authorship to Gosling's direction, although Lost River may not be as highly regarded as something like Best Picture winner Argo, which is of course a very good film. I'd argue that Lost River is a much more intriguing film in terms of what it wants to be and what it has to say and how it goes about showing that.
Please enjoy and play safe.
You're starting to annoy me now.
This movie in many ways is trying to cast a spell on you, hypnotizing you with its dreamlike visuals, production design, and a very beautifully euphoric score. And this whole dreamlike thing I keep going on about, well, I did get it from the director himself.
For instance, there's something very surreal about what's happening there, but at the same time it's also very real, and I wanted to try and make a film that incorporated both of those elements. So part of what we tried to do was give it a heightened reality and a fairy tale tone, but also incorporate people from the neighborhoods to give it that sort of to bring the reality into the fantasy. I also was a big fan of Benoit Debie. He's one of my favorite cinematographers. We shot on film, we shot all natural light. We shot with really fast lenses, so for instance, if a scene was lit by a TV, it was just really lit by the television, and because we wanted the film to be dark, and we wanted to find a way to sort of capture what was naturally beautiful about the environment, but also, not try and affect it too much.
Yeah, well, I think that's about it. Gosling did most of the talking there, but hopefully you guys do check out the film. You might not like it, but at the very least, I hope that you think it's interesting.